Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to push boundaries because it does get you noticed. I think the whole beg for forgiveness later is definitely a rule to follow in content.
B2B Content Strategist is the podcast where you'll hear actionable advice and strategic guidance from content marketing leaders. I'm Amy Woods, CEO of Content 10x, and I sit down with leading B2B marketers to discuss how they overcome challenges with limited time and resources and execute winning campaigns time after time. If you want to improve and streamline your content marketing, keep listening. Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of B2B Content Strategist. I'm your host, Amy Woods, the founder of Content 10x, and in this episode, I speak with Bethany Fagan, who is the head of content marketing at PandaDoc. PandaDoc is a platform for creating, managing, tracking, and e-signing documents. Bethany has been there for 7 years and has watched the company go from a scrappy startup to unicorn status. And her team has grown from just herself to an all-star squad of 5. In this conversation, we talk about her team's current priorities from a content perspective, why they are embracing the year of the customer. We also talk about successfully producing content that's B2B but not boring. Also, her team's favourite tools for project management, how they are doing more with less, and how repurposing their content plays a big role in their strategy. It's a fantastic conversation with loads of valuable takeaways. You are going to love this, so let's dive in. Bethany, welcome to B2B Content Strategist podcast. It's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Amy. Really nice to be here.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. I'm very much looking forward to the conversation as we've been doing our research at PandaDoc. We've been having a lot of fun because you guys are a fun, high energy company. So
Thank you.
And I guess that's a great segue to ask you, could you just really just summarize your role and a bit about PandaDoc as well for anyone who's not familiar?
Yeah. So PandaDoc is the fastest growing document automation and e-signature platform and solution. And I've been there 7 years. I celebrated my 7th anniversary in February. So that's really exciting for me. And I'm head of content there. So my role obviously has evolved a lot as we are a growing organization and business, but now I manage a team of 4, 5, including myself. I have a copywriter on the team. I have Travis Tyler, who you've probably seen all over at LinkedIn. He is our video content producer. And then I'm responsible for webinar and in-person live events. And then I have a full-time social media manager as well. So Tyler is in charge of social, community, all sorts of things. And of course, Miracle and Molly round out the copywriter and the event person. So yeah, we're a
Awesome.
pretty robust team. Yeah.
Absolutely. When you first started, so you just had your 7-year anniversary, what did the team look like then? Was it, were you the first marketing person on the ground at that time?
I wasn't the first marketing person, but I was the first content person, if you will. So it was just me. So I was actually, I had a colleague at the time who had started, we literally started the same day. And within, I think, 3 or 4 months, Martin had left the organization because he got an opportunity he couldn't refuse. And so then it was just me as kind of one of the only native English speakers on the marketing team at the time. And in college, I was a journalism major, a PR journalism major, and I've always loved writing. I've always loved content, and lucky for me, my role has just evolved into this full time managing a content team. So in the earlier days of PandaDoc in 2016, I was primarily responsible for partner marketing. So I worked with a lot of our integration partners on co-marketing, events, campaigns, all sorts of things, and then I would help demand gen from time to time, write ads, or I managed our social media channel by myself at one point. So yes, I was doing a lot of different content things back then, but I was the sole person on the team responsible for that.
Yeah, and now you've got an awesome team with you. In terms of how the team work, are you a hybrid, like virtual team, or do you physically work together?
Yeah, we're fully remote. I've actually been fully remote for PandaDoc since before the pandemic. So I would say 2017, I think. So I was one of the first people to work from remote just because we moved from California to New York City. But yes, we're fully remote, and so is the rest of the marketing teams. So we're kind of split between the U.S. Most of us are East Coast Central Time, and then a majority of our website demand gen, SEO, all those folks are in Eastern Europe. So they're across Ukraine, Portugal, and a few other places. So yeah, we're fully distributed remotely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of your content strategy, you guys do so much. I've seen you've got all this top of funnel content with the podcast and blog and really active social, all the channels, TikTok and everything. Then you've got webinars, ebooks and things like that. And then an awesome learning center and customer stories and things like that. It's been great just looking at, all the wonderful content that you create. What are your current priorities? So for 2023, like the key things that you're focusing on from a content perspective?
Yeah, so we've actually done a couple of exercises at my level and above as far as strategy. We've really kind of gone back to we have a theme this year called the Year of the Customer. So we've really kind of looked at our entire customer journey and making sure that not only marketing but sales CS is speaking the same language and how we think about our customers. How do we engage with our customers? Where are they? Where do they want to consume content? How do they want to learn about us? So my areas of focus are really at that top of funnel, right? Like you had mentioned, that discover and learn stage. So a lot of the things that I'm focused on are around or are organic channels, right? So organic social, still focusing on the podcast. And then I've recently also been working really closely with our website team. How do we provide a better experience on our website when it comes to content? I feel like we've kind of not that we've dropped the ball, right? But we all know that it's increasingly difficult to get people to move from social media to your website and get them to converge, right? So how do we create kind of more, create a more place of ease for them to kind of consume our content, go from page to page, even subscribe to get more of our content in their inbox, right? So my areas of focus are really around driving net new visitors to our website, continuing to grow our audience on social media, and then also capturing more and more email subscribers. So what ways and activities can I really kind of create content around to hit those goals? So yeah.
And you have quite a video focus within your content as well, don't you? Like I've noticed, yeah. Is that something that you've decided to go a bit more all in on this year?
I would say we'll probably keep the same pace as we did last year. I'd say where we're probably going to go a little bit more all in on would be on TikTok. I know there's a lot of conversations about is it going to be banned in the US? So how does everybody feel about it? But we feel like our competitors aren't really doing much there, and there is an opportunity to reach a different generation, a different audience, be more poised of a thought leader on there. So I would say that we're definitely looking at ways that we can mix kind of the fun pop culture type topics with our product and kind of be more instructional. I think Travis calls it like edutainment, which I really love that term, right? Like how do we ride that line between making sure that we're educating our audience about who we are, what we do, but also entertaining them and keeping them engaged. And of course, keeping us top of mind for when they are ready to potentially make a purchasing decision. So yeah.
What I really love about your content is it's just got such a like a fun vibe to it. It's really informal, it's really fun. It's B2B and not boring, which I know obviously I think sometimes people feel a little bit challenged by that. I know you're, super proud of your team. I've seen your LinkedIn posts and things like that, and just really proud of who you have in your team and the different roles that they play. Do you think that is like so important for a content team to be able to hit that vibe of getting like the light-hearted fun, but obviously still on point for your ideal clients and edutainment, but educational as well? Is that all about the vibe of the content team and the people who are within it? Do you think?
Yeah. I think it's important. I think you always have to have focus on a good mix of personalities on the team, I guess you will, right? Like I have Travis, which he is very outgoing. He loves to be in, he doesn't mind being in front of the camera. He loves kind of being that brand influencer of PandaDoc, if you will, right? But then I have Miracle on my team, who is a copywriter. So copywriter by nature, she's a little more reserved, but she's smart. She writes really thoughtful stuff. She writes really engaging and intriguing content. So I do think I am fortunate in the sense that I have that right balance of personalities and of strengths and weaknesses. And I do think it is important for, content leaders like myself to make sure that you're diversifying those personalities, right? And but also finding people with experience who aren't afraid to kind of push that boundary right to the edge without, being a little bit bold or too overbearing or any of that kind of nature. And it has taken us a little bit to get our senior leadership with a little more experience, a little more comfortable with our style and our tone of voice. Um, but we usually just say, well, the proof is in the pudding, right? In a sense of we've grown our social followers. I think last year we grew our followers across all of our social channels by 79%, right? So it's like if we can create content that's more personal and fun and relatable, then obviously people will want to come and see that content and want to engage with our brand. So yeah, I think it's good to have a mix of folks who want to do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. With your team, is there anything that you guys have done to try and streamline and optimize all those day-to-day and recurring processes to make life easier? Because obviously you mentioned a lot of things that you're all responsible for. Yeah, how do you optimize that and make sure it's streamlined and working efficiently?
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate we have a lot of great tools. We use Monday for our project management. I would also say that we still, even though we are a team of five, we still rely on contractors and content creators ourselves, right? Yes, we're course creators, but we don't have a surprisingly, considering you do a podcast and a lot of video content, we don't have a motion designer on our team, on our design team at PandaDoc. So we obviously have to outsource that work and find someone who can, make sure that they're creating that great content for us. So I would say as much as we are efficient ourselves in kind of creating the content, we do still rely on a lot of folks outside of PandaDoc who work with us exclusively to help us, get things out the door in a timely manner. We have also started looking at ways to get more with less, right? I mean, it's kind of the theme of this year. Everybody knows that startups are in a very interesting situation with the market in the US and layoffs and things. So, my boss has asked us, okay, well, here's your budget for the year. Where can you guys make sure that you're getting the biggest bang for our buck? And so we've looked at ways of, creating only one podcast a month, which we feel like is really great content, but we'll then take those pieces and make shorter videos, make some blog posts, make some other social content. So we've really had to look at ways to make sure that we're maximizing our distribution across like all of our potential channels. So I think that's going to make us more efficient and make us kind of pay attention to things that are working really well and things that aren't working so well and pivoting from there. So yeah.
And have you started looking at, or do you already work with AI? So obviously, a big thing that everyone's talking about at the moment is ChatGPT. I know from a business perspective, you will integrate AI into your offerings, but from a content team and from the content perspective, where do you guys stand on that?
Yeah, it's certainly something that we're considering. I've actually been evaluating tools with our SEO team. So it's unique in the sense of content at PandaDoc. You guys probably heard me mention at the top of the conversation. I don't own SEO at PandaDoc, right? It's definitely more of our demand gen channel. So we're looking at ways of how do we as a content team support SEO because things are constantly changing. They have to constantly update articles. We're at really great positions on SEO for our key branded keywords, right? But it's like, how do we look at something like AI to help us just continue a flywheel of content? So I am of a person who thinks if there's an opportunity to further my career, my knowledge, expand my skill set, and if AI is going to help me get there, I'm willing to entertain it. I don't think it's ever going to replace, someone like Tamiracle on my team who is a copywriter, because I do think that there is a sense of personalization that has to go into it. But can it help people be more efficient and work faster? Certainly, I definitely agree with that. Like I actually used GPT recently to help Tyler on our social media team write social posts. I had a small campaign for him. He is one person and we have a bunch of other marketing campaigns that have to go out the door. So I just did some inputs really quickly for a couple of pieces of content and kind of sent them to Tyler to say like, "Hey, I've already done half of this for you, but obviously it needs a little like finessing." But it was really great. It saved me and him a ton of time. And so, yeah, I think it's something that's definitely worth considering, especially if you want to be more efficient and especially if you are a smaller team that needs to get more done a little bit faster. So, yeah.
Just a super quick break from this conversation to let you know that if you're a B2B technology or professional services company and you want help with streamlining your content operations, outsourcing your content repurposing is the number one way to produce more high quality content and boost your ROI without putting any more pressure on your team. In fact, it could save your team up to 30 hours per week. We offer content repurposing services for video and audio content. Whether you have a show or you're launching a brand new one, maybe you have an archive of awesome content, be it webinars or a virtual event, or you want help creating thought leadership content that we can repurpose, we've got you covered. Head to content10x.com to see how we can help you and start increasing your efficiency and the value you get from your content. Now back to the conversation. Yeah, it's about getting good at how to use it, isn't it? And the right commands and all of that and understanding it. But yeah, there's loads of potential to be explored for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, you already actually touched on this when you said that you work with different experts that you don't have in house, like you mentioned about the motion designer. When it comes to deciding what you're going to keep in house and the skills and things like that, that you'll always rely on in-house expertise instead. What's important to you? So, what would you look for in terms of right? This is the point at which we should go for an external partner to work with.
Yeah, I think one of the a great example of that is the podcast, right? So like when we started the podcast, we were shooting the show in a small apartment in St. Petersburg, Florida, and that happened to be where my VP of marketing at the time, he was living in Indiana, but he would obviously come back to Florida very often to meet with our executive leadership team. And he had challenged us to, go beyond written content. Like, what does that look like? Everybody's starting a podcast. Let's do it. So we were super scrappy. We had, I think Travis bought like a super simple camera off of Amazon. He had a couple tripods. He like tried to do some fun stuff with some backlighting and things. But we probably only spent a few $100s. And then once we realized that we were getting, you know, I forget what the exact metric was, but I think we had produced, call it 10 episodes, right? And I had gotten a few hundred downloads. We're like, okay, we're on to something. So how do we make the studio look a little bit nicer? We invested in more quality camera equipment and better microphones. And, Travis kept just pushing on his own personal profile on social media, on LinkedIn. And I'd say probably when we got to, probably we're almost at the 6 digit, downloads, streams, like totals, but I would say probably we were starting to hit the tens of thousands of, streams. We're like, okay, how do we make this look really nice? So how do um, we were also growing our social media followers at a steady rate. So we knew that there were some positive investments and positive, metrics of measurement that obviously that were worth kind of our investment. So I would say once we kind of had an inkling that this could be a really good medium and channel for us, is when we started to kind of look at ways of just making it look nicer. Leadership was willing to spend a little bit more money on it because we had to put our best foot forward, right? We had obviously hit a certain stage or certain people who were kind of paying attention to us. And that was kind of, I think, when we made that decision to outsource. And now we have a great studio in St. Pete, Florida called Coastal Creative. They're great partners of ours. That's where Travis records the show. And then again, we work with Swan Media, which is an agency based in Ukraine to kind of do the motions and, edit and stitch the show together. So I'd say once some metrics of streams and downloads were kind of taking off was when we made that decision to invest a little bit more.
Yeah, it makes complete sense, and it's great that you did it in that way in terms of just experimenting first and seeing if it showed the signs of something that was worth investing in. Because obviously, it's always an investment. So, yeah, that's awesome. Congrats on such a successful podcast. It's not easy.
It's not easy. I think we're on technically season 3 of the show. I think we'll hit we've already hit 70 episodes next quarter. I mean, Travis and I are already figuring out ways to make how do we make a 100th episode like a really awesome one. So yeah, thank you. It's been fun. It's been a fun learning experience.
I bet. What's one of your most memorable content marketing initiatives? Maybe you've already answered the question just then by talking about the podcast, but like, what would you consider to be? I sometimes say the best, but I think the most memorable actually is probably a better question for across your career in terms of these marketing initiatives that just really stand out to you.
I mean, it's hard for me really to pick one. I think it's been the evolution of my journey at PandaDoc that's been really interesting, right? I think back to the days of when I was a partner marketing manager and doing co-marketing, and I was really proud of we did an ebook with HubSpot and it was co-branded and co-promoted. And at the time, that was my biggest kind of achievement, right? And then that was when you could share leads without GDPR implications and things. So I'd say like that time of my career was really great. More recently, it's been the podcast that has been a really nice achievement. I'd say now we're turning a new leaf in the sense of it's really cool for me to see that our brand responds really well on TikTok, right? I think there's some interesting channels that I think some content marketers might be afraid to kind of try, but it's all about experimenting and trying things and seeing what sticks and seeing what resonates and what gets you into a little bit of trouble sometimes too, right? So that you can learn from those things. So I don't know. It's really hard for me to really pick one, but I'd say just the evolution of content marketing throughout my career and my journey has been really interesting to kind of see. Because as somebody who was a journalism major, I had no idea that this could turn into a full-time job for me, right? And it's been really fun to see, the industry really pick up content and value content and enjoy, making it a pillar of a marketing team and making it an investment. So yeah, it's been interesting to see that evolution and fun too. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What about things to avoid? So, do you have any cautionary tales or funny stories of content marketing that's gone a little bit wrong?
I mean, we've certainly gotten a few messages from HR about like, was that appropriate? Yeah, but but it's all been in good fun. I think there's been some of that, but I don't know. I think what I would say is, I think where I really struggled, is always proving the value to the business, right? And I think it's one of those things that I think content marketers avoid because they're afraid of it, but I think that that's one thing to avoid is don't be afraid with it. Start small when it comes to starting to measure the value that you and your team brings to a business, right? So for me, surprisingly, we don't have multi-touch attribution and we don't have some of these fancy kind of measurement tools that you would think that would help us and enable us to make content decisions. So I've had to kind of go back to the basics. So I have social media monitoring and measurement tool, right? So how do I report on impressions and engagement rate and click rates? Because all those things are valuable and worth kind of reporting on. I've also had to get back to, how are we pulling people off of social and driving them to the website, right? So again, how do I look at ways of creating content that drives engagement, but also ultimately brings people to pandadoc.com? Like, how do we get them to learn more about us and who we are? So I would say it's don't avoid or don't be afraid to kind of look at some of those really basic elementary type metrics and being consistent about measuring those because those do make an impact. And I think that's where people kind of get a little nervous, like, well, how am I going to generate pipeline and leads from content? And it's not always about that. And I think, building that business case and proving that to your leadership team is equally important. So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes it's more about explaining that to the other stakeholders, isn't it? That that is not the purpose and intention of this. I'm going to jump to the quick fire round, should we say? So,
Love these.
so what is one takeaway tip that you would give your younger self starting out in content marketing?
I kind of back to my point. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to push boundaries because it does get you noticed. And I think the whole beg for forgiveness later is definitely a rule to follow in content. So yeah, yeah.
Agreed. What's one typically overlooked or undervalued tool that you would recommend to content marketers like yourself?
Um, I think social media monitoring. So like even if you are one person, there's still a lot of affordable tools out there that can allow you to measure and check on and keep a pulse on your social media channels organically. So I know that's been a huge help for me because I haven't always had marketing ops support or revenue operation support or any of that kind of that um, dashboards and reports and things. So I think for me, my biggest one has been Sprout. Sprout, we've been a Sprout customer for several years, and they've really helped me, take a look at impressions, engagement, clicks, and then also keeping a pulse on share of voice. So like, how are we against our competitors when it comes to, messaging and go to market and that kind of stuff. So I think there's plenty of affordable, free social media tools, and I think that's something underestimated because a lot of people just think that they got to jump to Google Analytics or, they need a full MTA tool or something like that. So
Okay, if you could create any kind of content for your organization, so for PandaDoc, and we mean anything, so you've been given an unlimited budget, so it could be ad with this all-star cast on TV or like Times Square, billboards, things like that. Sky's your limit. What would you do?
it'd have to be something around like this. I hate to be cheesy, but like the Super Bowl, right? It's kind of the world's biggest stage. I think what I learned about the Super Bowl this year was really interesting as a lot of the halftime performers, they don't get paid to perform. Like they use their own money and budget and all sorts of things to put on a performance. And then the brand recognition that they receive in return probably pays what they spent, right? So it's like Rihanna's a great example. She didn't put on a fancy show, right? But I bet you her lingerie line and her makeup business were widely impacted by the fact that she did a 5-minute show on a very big stage. So it would have to be something like that where I'm, I think there's a positive conversation happening in the content world around demand capture versus demand creation. And I'd want to pick something that would really create that demand, right? And then capture that later, right? So it's like, how do we spend some money on something big branded, that would, keep us top of mind and build our brand awareness. So something around that, for sure.
Yeah, sounds good. And finally, on B2B Content Strategists, we want to be speaking to true B2B content marketing leaders like yourself, and specifically in the tech world. So who do you think we should invite on the show? Who jumps out to you?
There's a few gals I follow recently that started their own podcast show. Um, Devin Bramhall, she was I forget what role she played at Animals, which was a content marketing agency, but she started a podcast with a gal, I think a colleague of hers or something, and I feel terrible. I can't remember her name,
We'll look
but
them up.
look them up. But look up Devin Bramhall and her new podcast show. She's been doing a really nice show on content marketing, which I've really been enjoying. So definitely them. So yeah.
100%. Brilliant. Okay, thank you. We'll check them out. Sounds great. Especially like to shine a light on the female marketing leaders in the B2B content space as well. So awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Where would you like people to go to connect with you?
LinkedIn is great. I'm just LinkedIn/Bethany Fagan. And then make sure you follow us on PandaDoc. And if you want to check out our TikTok as well, it's PandaDoc. We're having a lot of fun there. So definitely check out our content there. And then the podcast is the Customer Engagement Lab. And you can find the Customer Engagement Lab on Spotify and Apple or wherever you listen to podcast shows.
We will provide links to everywhere that you just mentioned as well in the show notes for people to take a look. So thanks. It's been an awesome conversation, Bethany. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Amy. Yeah, it was really nice. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, it was great speaking with you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of B2B Content Strategist. Do let me know what you thought of our conversation by getting in touch with me on social media. You'll find Content 10X on all the social platforms or search for Amy Woods, CEO of Content 10X on LinkedIn. To find out more about streamlining your content marketing processes and specifically about content repurposing, check out our website content10x.com, where you'll find information and resources that will help you achieve more with your content more efficiently. And if you're looking for a partner to outsource your content repurposing and distribution to, get in touch, as we offer a world-class, fully end-to-end done-for-you content repurposing service. Thanks again for listening to this episode, and I'll catch you in the next one.